Spring savings are in the air and at Ross, where they have savings on all the brands you love. From the latest fashion to outdoor decor and even pet supplies, savings are in every aisle. Go to Ross and save 20 to 60% off other retailers' prices on your favorite spring finds.
Don't miss your chance to spring into deals at Lowe's. Right now, get a free 60-volt Toro battery when you purchase a select 60-volt Toro electric mower. Plus, buy 3 19.3-ounce vegetable and herb Bonnie plants for just $10. It's time to give your yard a grow-up. Lowe's. We help. You save. Valid through 4/23. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Discount taken at time of purchase. Actual plant size and selection varies by location. Excludes Alaska and Hawaii.
Nerds, welcome to The Paper Fold. I am your host, Sarah, the paper nerd, and I'm so glad to be back nerding out with you on my favorite topic, stationery. Before I get to the second part of my chat with Sally Diguette, I need to shout out my very special sponsor, Avanti Press. Based in Detroit and New York, Paperfold listeners are well aware by now that the company produces the Avanti, A-Press, and America card brands, plus distributes Dominique Sherman's Nikki D lifestyle brand in North America. But those words do not do justice to the amazing breadth of design and sentiment found under this sprawling house of paper's rather zany roof. Thus, they are so well suited to host the GCA's Greeting Card Conference in Detroit, October 6th through 8th. Registration is now open, and once you do that, be sure to also take advantage of the GCA's special rate at the iconic Weston Book Cadillac Hotel. Visit greetingcard.org/2025-greeting-card-conference/ to book your spot and get your card adventure started. Now, back to Sally. If you have not listened to the first part of my conversation with Sally, a specialty retail buyer at Anthropologie, as well as a consultant like myself, please go back and check it out. In this, the second part of our conversation, we touch a lot on the idea of building community through special events and other collaborations with small makers. No matter your role in the stationery community, connection and community are always our end goal. Any way that can heighten that process or make it easier will not only benefit the end user, it benefits the brand, which is what both our consulting practices aim to tackle. Part 2 of our chat follows right after this. Nerds, I cannot be the only one wondering what that fantastic and fantastical LA-based brand Girl with Knife has been up to lately. After all, this California house of design has trailblazed its way through paper goods, home decor, and yes, even house design since the incredible creative powerhouse Alicia Castaldi founded it in 2018. Every last creation humbly springs from a nimble slice of Alicia's knife, aka her trusty X-Acto blade, with messaging and imagery that is by turns sweet and sassy, but always incredibly smart. You want this girl by your proverbial side. It's no surprise then that Girl with Knife has assembled a huge stack of titles and awards in its brief existence. Among them, the incredibly prestigious Artist of the Year Louis Award in 2022, as well as the equally competitive but far edgier Best Use of Profanity, Noted at Noted Award, and not just once, but 2 times over. Clearly, I am not the only one waiting raptly to see what drops next. New for 2025, look out for a dozen new card designs, both everyday and seasonal, as well as some gorgeous wraps in which to stylishly clad your gifts. Alicia tells me it is a tease to whet your appetite for a much larger spring release coming. I, for one, cannot wait. Meanwhile, since officially opening its doors for business, Knife House Palm Springs has been booked rather solid with weddings and photo shoots. And after 2 years of painstaking work, Knife House Bel Air is finally complete. These houses transmit Alicia's vision into exquisite 3-dimensional living spaces, but for those of us who cannot experience them in California, Girl with Knife dispenses that glamour in paper and gift form. Thus, whether it is a hilarious greeting card for that bestie you have been missing, like the one reading, "You're the only one I answer the phone for," against an image of an old-fashioned phone replete with curly cord, or the eternally fierce candle, an intoxicating essence of midnight rose to remind you of your true nature in olfactory form, this is officially your brand new BFF in paper goods and home decor. So if you're a paper or design nerd out in the wild looking to express your best self as you lift up those you adore, head on over to girlwithknife.com and immerse yourself. And if you are in the trade, shop this top shop brand sensation exclusively on Fair 24/7 and be on the lookout for winter market specials. I guarantee your stationery, as well as your living and workspaces, will slay. Prior to Anthropologie, you also played a big role. The store is called Citizen Supply in Atlanta. You heralded essentially through COVID. You joined it at its inception in 2017. You built all store and product operations, solely overseeing product direction, buying, and product development. No biggie. And then, so I'm curious, having gone from a small store to a big store, and you did speak to this a little bit, but what small store elements are you trying to harness from that experience and bringing to Anthropologie?
Yeah. I mean, I think the main thing is I am still very much interested in product from smaller brands and smaller makers. That is at the heart of how I really started in retail. I didn't really intend to have this as a career and sort of fell into it with that store and was there for 7 years and madly fell in love with it and was like, oh my gosh, I want to do this, and then continued. But
that's the best way to do it.
Yes, it is. I'm very glad that happened because I probably would have never found it otherwise. But the biggest thing that grounded that store and that brand was the fact that it was tied to other small businesses and makers. And so that's so much at my kind of core of product and buying that I'm always still very much interested in that. And I think that differs from some other kind of bigger box brands or corporate brands where they also just don't have the capability to work with smaller brands still.
Yes. When you look at, say, Trader Joe's, which brings in they have great cards, they have great stationery, and they have small makers clearly in their food as well, but it brings in that small maker feel by having the stationery and also the illustrated element, that really...
Yeah, it feels more personalized and special.
You're not really expecting to see that in a grocery store.
Right.
And I would argue there was a time when you wouldn't really expect to see them at a clothing store.
Yeah. No, I agree. And still many clothing stores. Yeah. I do think that it definitely sets things apart still. And I'm very thankful that I am able to bring some of that into this more kind of corporate buying landscape, because that's what it is. And it's so different than being in total small business land. But the fact that I'm even able to still have that as an option to work with smaller brands is amazing. And part of why I love what I do now too, because I get to kind of merge those spaces and obviously work with some larger brands too. And that's definitely part of it. But yeah, I would say that is the number one biggest thing and always on my radar. And when I am walking a show or when I'm surfing Instagram or whatever, I'm still always looking for the small guys to be what's out there and what's new and who's emerging and up and coming. And you're usually doing something different than everybody else. So I'm also very interested for that reason.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So when you look back too, with your experience during COVID, it's weird because for a while, even now looking back on it, it's kind of a blur, but maybe enough time has gone by that you're able to make some sense of it. But when you look back to carrying this store through COVID, which is a whole crazy experience, what do you think were your biggest takeaways, lessons for that element?
It was a crazy experience, and it got very down to just me and the owner really riding this wave together, which was an undertaking, I think, for everyone involved. And it was so unknown, and every day something, wild and new would pop up that you're like, oh my God, I have to restart the whole plan.
Did you have a Shopify? Were they set up with a Shopify store during COVID? That seemed to be the biggest different, the biggest God. Out of the gate
Yeah. Yeah. There was a quick pivot to be like, we got to get that online business a lot bigger than what it was, because it had been very sort of like secondary and in the background for many years at that point. It was a store that was primarily an in-person location. But I think the biggest learns that came out of it were just continuing to pivot and like pivot quickly, but intentionally. And I definitely like carry that with my work today all the time. But I think there's one thing to just pivot and be like, okay, I'll just try something new. This isn't working, or I need to do something different. But pivoting intentionally is different. And I think that's like one of the things that I oftentimes talk to people about when I'm talking to a brand and they're like, I'm feeling kind of lost in the sauce of like, I'm in these early days and I feel like I have 8,000 things to do and there's so many directions I could go in, and what should I do? And it's like, we have to think intentionally about why we're doing these things and not just sort of be like, we're going to snap and try something different, slap it at the wall and see what sticks kind of situation. But it's really hard. I mean, there's so much that goes into just a pivot in general. And it's so hard to know, like, is this the right thing or the wrong thing? And you'll always make mistakes. It's not ever always going to be the right thing, but
I do think people got more used to pivoting, and there's maybe like a little less panic when you're going to try something new, like when everything's hitting the fan and you're like, okay, I have to like try something new. And it's that process is maybe like a little less scary and a little more familiar, because we've all had to do it so many times. And like, you realize there's no, you can usually, if it's a horrible mistake, you can usually like kind of like work yourself out of it, or what.
That's true. But most are not going to be that big. So you're like, you can get through it. Yeah. Yeah. I do think it took some of that fear out in those years. And I agree. I think people are more comfortable with it now. And I hope so, because I do think that's a really good learning lesson to come out of it, that like you can recover. And even if you do make a wild little choice, you can be like, okay, that's okay.
Right. Totally. On. Like, we'll get out of it. And just also just not having the fear of making a choice and taking a step. A lot of people just sort of like, taking action is too intimidating. It's like a Hamlet type of scenario where you cannot, commit yourself to an action. So it definitely, COVID made that definitely a little easier. And I think too, one thing I see, you could probably speak to that better too. In the stationery community, it's like some makers are like, I'm going to one market and that's where people can find me and I'm on fair. Yeah. And some are like, some are still trying to do, have their hands in as many markets, and some are just working with reps. And, there's no, where there used to be like one or two sort of strategies, there's like 7 billion.
There's so many. I know. I agree. I think it's great that people aren't trying to go to every single show at this point. And obviously shows have changed so much the years. And that was a big thing of COVID too. But I definitely don't think you need to go to every single show.
I don't either.
And like kill yourself trying to be in 8,000 places throughout the year and then not have time to, like, as we were talking about earlier, it's like you need to digest it after it happens and like follow up with all the people that you did meet. But then if you're just on to the next one, you're like, I don't have any time to like make use of what I just did, and like kind of capitalize on your investment, because it is a monetary investment, a time investment, energy investment. Like, you're investing a lot to go to a trade show. So I agree. I think that like the strategy has changed, and I think it's great that it has changed in that way. I think a lot of people also think that buyers go to like every single session of every market too. Yeah. But like, I only go to Atlanta market once a year. I don't go all the time. And that's true for like most of the markets I attend in other cities too. And I think to that point is part of why I'm like, you don't have to go every time, because I'm not going every time. Like it can be different and fluid throughout the year, and what works for everybody in different like seasons and sessions. And if you recently went, or, you might feel like you don't need to run over there right away. But yeah, I pretty much stick to like market timing. And then otherwise I'm very either in the conversations from a trade show or I'm online and I'm like heavily looking in that way.
Looking. Yeah. I mean, look, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
So you are also a consultant, and every client I've ever met of yours just sings your praises. And over at your site, Diguette.us, I'll spell that out, SALLYDIGUETTE.us. You offer so many tools to make being a maker easy. Catalog template, email templates, outreach tracker tools, wholesale pitch calendars. As a lefty, I'm very impressed. Rather with your right brain approach. We'll be right back after this. And we're back. What types of challenges do your clients tend to come to you with?
Yeah. I typically work on the more kind of emerging side for sure. That's really like where my passion ultimately lies from my pre-anthro days. And so a lot of times people are like brand new to the game or like still very fresh to the game.
Yeah. And a lot of my clients are at that. Yeah. I call it the throw everything at the wall phase.
Yes, they're in that phase. And I think the biggest things that I often see that are overarching themes are like, how do I even be prepared to want to wholesale? Like, what do I even need to be talking to these people about? Or what am I even telling them when I do find a contact or I see someone at a trade show or whatnot? And then how do I like organize all of it and make sure that it's making sense as a business? And I'm like profiting in some way and I'm moving in the right direction of like, this could be sustainable. And then I think the third thing is people. And as people start to grow, they're like, oh my gosh, I need some help. I'm going to hire someone. But like, how do I even do that? And it's such a different part of an emerging business to the like product and even like product operational side. And usually people that are getting into a product business are product people. They might not be like people manager people, and that is rightfully so. But I get that a lot too. And just understanding like, how am I like managing a small team or like finding a team and then having them propel my business forward while I'm kind of focusing on what I uniquely can do for my business. And that's typically the more like creative side.
Yeah.
But I think those are the biggest, like all the time after time, very consistent.
Yeah. I mean, I think most of my clients' challenges come down, you know, to that and just like positioning your brand. I mean, like oftentimes I feel like makers they're looking at their work so closely and questioning everything so closely that they kind of just lose that macro view. And sometimes you have to come in and be like, no, this is your strength. You're a floral illustrator.
Don't get rid of this.
Right? Like, this is what you bring to the table. Don't try to downplay it or explain it or make excuses for it. Like, this is who you are. And this is like your strength. Like a lot of times I think people sort of get lost in that forest. But it can be hard. I mean, comparison is the thief of joy in business. And like, you know, people see what other people do and they feel like they need to have something similar. Like I always like the way, like I always feel like a really interesting way for stationery to evolve. Like you look at like an Emily McDowell, okay, so she did empathy cards. She like put everything on their ear. But then you have a maker like Janine at Quotations who's like, let's take the ground that Emily took for us, but I'm going to put my own stamp on it. I'm not going to try to write there is no good card for this card. I'm going to write. Like I'm going to build on what she did, but I'm going to do it totally in my own way. And that's what I love to see. And that's what I tend to get really excited about. And if I can help someone like kind of shake them a little gently and be like, no, this is what you're doing, even if you don't quite know it, because you're getting confused by like getting a rep.
The sea of all the things. Right. Yeah, I agree.
It's a fun process. And I have to say, I did not get into this business to be a consultant, but it's definitely so rewarding to see, like, to have someone be so happy because they landed that order or they, you know, they accomplished that goal and to be like, well, I did a little bit there. Like I helped them get there. Like, it's a really unexpected type of win.
Yeah.
That you just
I agree.
that you just love to see.
Wholeheartedly agree. I think there's like something so special to just like being someone's cheerleader and being able to also kind of, excuse me, being able to also kind of guide throughout like, okay, you know, I have this experience I can share, but at the end of the day, I think the most rewarding part is the like excitement that everyone can get from the finished product or the goal that the milestone that we reached or figuring out some issue that felt really daunting. And then when it's done, you're like, okay, it's not all that bad. I can keep moving forward, you know?
Yeah,
but
we got on the other side of it. Yeah.
It's so hard when you're siloed and you're by yourself and you don't have someone that you can ask questions to or run something by or be like, what do you think about this? Am I doing the right thing? Is this still feel like my brand or am I just on a tangent over here? Like reel me in if you need to. Yeah. So I think it's amazing and I love it too. And just like you, I never thought that I'd be like, I'll be consulting people on the product and their businesses one day, but I love it.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
And it's so nice to be able to, for me, I mean, I don't mean this to, hopefully this doesn't come out wrong, but it's so nice to use like, to be able to utilize like all the things I've been thinking where like I'll be reviewing art for the publication and I'll be like, why did they do this like this? Like, why don't they do that like that? Like it's going to kill them. And to be able to kind of like finally be able to be like, let it all out and say it after thinking these things privately for years. Like, it's amazing. Like, and it's just so freeing. And
it is.
And it's so fun to watch these little lines grow. I know we talked about like a couple, like right now, I think it's stationary. I think it's pretty safe to say there's a lot of British brands kind of coming into the American stationery scene. And because they look different and they feel different and they have a different approach, they just feel like really fresh to our market, not to knock American makers. But like we were talking
I agree though. Yeah.
Totally. Like we were talking about like Fluff Mallow, for example. And it's like, she's a really, really fresh range who's super interesting, not too much in the States now. She might like be a little too fresh. That she is a good fit, but like, it's almost like, is it like too soon? Like, how do we bring her in and like to help her? I know you talking to her, I'm talking to her. We both talked about her in Atlanta and I was like, messaging her on Instagram. I'm like, I'm meeting Sally in my office at Starbucks. You know, I'm waiting for her now. I'm going to mention you. You know, it's amazing to kind of like see that. And then when I get to the point where I'm standing in a Barnes and Noble or a store and I see her product in front of me, it's just like so amazing to have played.
It's so exciting.
To play a little role in that. Yes.
Yeah.
So I always close with nerd notes. I switched up the format a little bit and I just ask guests, to share a memorable card or letter they received, just the first one that comes to your mind. So let's hear yours and the circumstances around it. I have a feeling it's going to be good.
I'm actually very excited to share this. It is handcrafted by my mother-in-law. So it starts in a little envelope. I open it. It was our invitation this past Christmas to Christmas at her house. And she made these incredible I feel like my blur is even messing up a little bit. They're incredible. And she made probably like 6 or 7 different ones and everyone's was unique. And she spent all the time like painting and cutting and gluing and just like doing all the intricacies for these cards.
What type of card is that
away.
Even called? It's not a shadow box. It's not I wonder if there's
like I know, I'm sure there's like a actual like very specific name for it, but
it reminds me of the Easter eggs. Remember, like sometimes you see like and I think I saw someone doing that at Shop Object with the
probably
like things you look into. Like I was fascinated by those as a child, and that's amazing that she did that and she made that, and so she must have just sort of like invented the format. I mean, for how she was going to do it.
And they were all different. Yeah, they were all unique. One of them was like Nutcracker themed. Some were just wintry themed. Like all totally unique and amazing. And she's a very creative woman, obviously, to be able to do that and think of it and spend time making them come to life. But I thought that was immediately when you were like, you got to share some paper. I was like, oh, this is the paper I'll share.
When are you starting a range with her?
It did come up at the Christmas table. Everyone was like, oh, you've got to like sell these. These would be amazing. But I think she's very much of the mind of like, this is my fun stuff. Like, I don't have plans to make this into a business.
Right.
I want it to be fun.
And that's
I'm like,
why
that's
it
great.
is.
Yeah.
That's why it is fun.
Yeah, I know. Because I'm like, as soon as we start talking about how to make these on a mass scale, like, wouldn't it be as fun? Yeah.
Right. We can make it work, but no gold foil. It's going to drive the price up to $25 each. And there's no way anyone's spending that on a card.
Exactly. So I love it. It's an amazing craft that she's holding close for that reason and not trying to make it into a business. I think that's great.
Wow. Well, clearly, like there's a lot of creativity in your family of origin and the family you married into. That's amazing. And how was her? I mean, if you get an invitation like that.
No, it was amazing. Everything is very like themed, but in a very
tasteful,
like feel, but also very like comfortable feel. She has like the perfect touch of how to make her vision come to life in all different ways. But it was incredible.
It sounds sort of like Anthropologie. Oh, I love that. Well, Sally, I cannot thank you enough for coming by the Paperfold and chatting today. It was just such a joy to have you here and nerd out.
Yeah, I agree. I was so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I really appreciated our conversation.
Me as well. Thank you again. Thank you so much again, Sally, for dropping in the Paperfold. I so enjoyed our conversation, and frankly, finishing this up makes me want to pick your brain all over again to see what's new there. Finally, thank you for listening and for listening this far. Of course, feel free to give me a 5-star rating and review if you are so inclined. It will help new nerds find us. The Paperfold is proud to be a member of the Evergreen Podcast Network. To learn more about this dynamic, incredible community, please visit evergreenpodcasts.com. Thank you so much, nerds, and please stay safe out there.